Something about it that it kind of feels like like when the internet first came out and we almost didn't know what we could do with this thing, and then someone would come up, well here, we can do this, we can message each other, or you can put a website up, or you could sell things on this website. There's all these things that no one really thought to do that before. And not that I know that this hasn't happened before, or I've never seen an example like this, but it feels like one of those moments where you're like, whoa, people really can do this now.
The story has everything we needed to just say no to the black pills, at least for a little while longer, and enjoy a moment of mischief that gives hope that at least some of our corrupt rulers may not be as powerful as they seem.
One of the reasons I'm always so optimistic about the future is because I don't think who we're up against are very clever or strategic or sophisticated.
I imagine that they probably will try to create some sort of legislation against this, but the problem is, you'll legislate against that thing, but the emotion and the impetus behind it hasn't gone away.
What are we going to do about the fact that our financial system could potentially be brought down by a greedy short-selling hedge fund and a bunch of people on Reddit that call them out for it?
What this requires is reform. It's a demand for reform when these things happen, because it shows that there's a problem with the system, and every system that's built by mankind is going to be flawed in some way. And over time, the problems that are created by those flaws build up until they're unacceptable.
People who are not into socialism, look at what's happening with the corruption and the command economy, how these elites can control socialism for me, but not for thee, essentially. They say, see, that's socialism, when the powerful elites steal the resource and keep it for themselves. Socialists are saying that's capitalism. That through their monopolistic power, they collude and just stop poor people from being able to get access to any of the resources. And I'm just like, yo, that's just corruption.
That's what's going on with this banking cartel system. It has nothing to do with just whether banking should exist in theory. What it has to do with is, should the government create a Federal Reserve that then prints money out of thin air and hands it to the big banks at 0% interest?
Remember when you had a party and you couldn't clean up the next day and you heard the doors of your parents' car shut? But after that moment of sheer terror, you were like, you looked around at the house and you knew it was so bad that it wasn't one or two things you could grab. There was so much shit. They knew what was happening. They're gonna get you, and you just had to kind of release yourself and go, hey, man, sorry, we had a party.
After 2020, it's like impossible for them to even pretend that there's any degree of competence going on, like that this whole thing isn't just a shit show. It's rigged not in your favor, and like it's becoming very hard for them to keep this whole thing together, to even pretend that this is, what we're selling you isn't complete bullshit.
Maybe the establishment elites, who normally have an airtight control of the media and the narrative and the system, are slipping. They're losing their grip.
If you've got a hose that you're piping water through at high pressure, and the hose springs a leak, and you put your finger down on it, okay, but the pressure hasn't gone away. You're just artificially preventing that pressure from exhibiting at this point, and so it bursts up again somewhere else. And you got to put another thing down, and until the entire thing will split open because you just got too many points on it that you're holding down.
Sorry, we had a party. That's what you're gonna have to tell your children. We had a party for 50 years. We did it on cheap credit. We did it by going all around, all over the world and doing things we should not have been doing. Bad things. We had a 50-year party. We bought homes and cars, and we mortgaged them, and we put them on credit cards, and we took out lines of credit. We took out big mortgages. We built big, beautiful cities and then stopped giving a shit about them. And we financed this with expansion, that was, financed by war and deceit and fraud.
When you have a distributed network of people who have far too much time on their hands and are smarter than they are kind of moronic, like they all call themselves like a proud community of autists, but like you don't want to fuck with those people.
Like you were saying, this is an entire population with too much time on their hands, who also spend their time trying to figure out how the enemy, in this case in the video games, the enemy works, And what weapons do I need to do to conquer this enemy?
You see the market move, which is quantifiable, which makes it really interesting because you can actually see what's happening. It's not just a sentiment, right? It's not just how people feel. It's quantifiable metrics there in front of you.
It becomes a game to them. It's like, okay, let's do A/B testing. Let's try different tactics. And it's decentralized. So you have an army of these people.
What's saying idle hands at the devil's playground?
Yes.
Well, that's something that the Wall Street funds should be saying right now, because you've got an economy shuttered and a bunch of people sitting around saying, what do I do?
And then the third thing is a realization that instead of having idea dinners or, quiet whispered conversations amongst hedge funds in the Hamptons, these kids have the courage to do it transparently in a forum.
It would, I think, be wiser for those people who currently benefit from the system to accept that is an immutable reality of things that men build, and roll with the punches rather than become authoritarian and start clamping down and legislate. Oh, we have to protect ourselves.
The state has an interest in and has always had an interest in crushing dissent.
There's zero possibility that you're going to get help through Washington. So if that is where the focus lays for you, I can't help you. And you are right to be committed to your despair and nihilism.
Now, because you don't have, 3 broadcast networks anymore and a handful of newspapers that were all run, by the way, by people that had been either compromised or happily going with the program, and you have this wild west of the internet.
Right now, we have this interesting nonpartisan mass effort where everyone can see the media is lying. Whatever you want to call it, there's a group of extremely powerful elites who are stripping away the resources and value from working class people.
And I'm not saying all of it is perfect by any means.
In some cases, it goes in a very, very bad direction. You kind of have this white nationalism, this sense of, oh, your life is bad because there's too many minorities. And now this racial identity means you can look at what your grandfather supposedly did. Now you're a great person. But this is another example. You could be at your desktop, your, what they call them, like workstation, and you can cause systemic carnage against some really nasty people and have lulls at the same time. Isn't that great?
I think it takes an enormous amount of faith in the system to be that transparent, to talk about things, and then for each individual to make their own mind up.
At the same time, podcasts are really popular. Long form podcasts are really popular, and people are hungry for those kinds of conversations. There's a lot of dangerous ideas, quote unquote, flowing, being spread around through podcasts, meaning just like debates. Humor is one of the tools to balance the powers in society.
I think a lot of it's also the enormous disconnect between how people in power are presented as moral, superior, people who should be listened to and obeyed, as opposed to the reality.
People like me, people that make funny content that I hope is funny, but a lot of it is wild and crazy. The kids from school brought people I didn't know, and they started drinking and smoking and throwing lamps, and they started buying houses and cars and going to war with other houses, and I didn't consent to any of that. I just listened to music. I was just trying to get my dick sucked in the closet. I'm trans, by the way. And then mommy and daddy, we didn't know. And then mommy and daddy are going to say something in Chinese, and then they're going to zap you, and you're going to fall to the floor, and they're going to give you a social credit score, and you're going to say, well, it is what it is, folks, because the party's fucking over. I say a lot of wild and crazy things about powerful people.
Yeah. You mock the powerful in there by bringing them down a notch. You give me freedom to think.
Well, thank you.
Meaning, like, you're shaking things up to where I don't feel constrained about what I can think about. And
well, that's awesome.
And I
thank you.
So you're not telling me what to think. You're giving me the freedom to think. And that's what great comedy does. And it's arguable that the freedoms we do enjoy currently are thanks to the comedic voices or the people who mock. So to me, it's possible that humor is the very thing that saves the world.
I think the memes, I mean, they're viral right now. I'm tweeting and I'm Instagramming a whole bunch of them all the time, because just in that one simple image, in that simple representation, you're able to get across ideas so much more effectively than any video, than any photo, than any article, than any other kind of media form.
And when you have this enormous disconnect, and it gives people the opportunity to A, undermine it, and B, enjoy themselves, and feel empowered that they're doing something about it, this is a very dangerous combo for the elites.
It feels to me like there's a common thread, and I haven't worked out what it is, but a common thread through a lot of what we're seeing at the moment. We've had the Capitol Hill, we've had the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, we've had Portland riots, we've had this that we're seeing happening with Wall Street bets. The iterative speed of the devolving of what used to be these structures.
States are not quick actors. It's very, very hard, and no one will deny this, for any kind of government to act or react to a dynamic situation. Compared to that to Twitter, someone on Twitter or someone on Reddit or something like that. Yeah, where you have all these people, it's decentralized, everyone can be on top of it, and the information spreads more quickly.
This is one of the things that we've been talking about for a long time, not specifically on, countering, hedge funds shorting stocks, but just the idea that one of the like really powerful weapons that people have against the ruling elite is that there's so many more of us than there are of them. If enough people just decide we're not doing this anymore, then that's it. If 100 million Americans decide we're not sending our taxes in, we're not paying income tax anymore, then we just abolished the federal income tax. So there is enormous potential when large groups of people kind of get on the same page and realize that this whole system is rigged.
They're not spending time on Reddit. They don't know the internet. So this is going to be completely hit them upside the head out of nowhere. And by the time they were like, let's sit down and figure out how to react, it's 2 weeks later and they've already moved on. This is another reason I'm so enormously optimistic about the future of the West.
We're about to develop fusion power, so I think we're okay. I think we're going places.
I'm talking about like the U.S. current global economic order.
That's going to shatter. That's a weird.
It's falling apart right now.
Snake in the grass. Get into do whatever, but
that's what I was saying about the GameStop rebellion being just the beginning. I mean, these people have figured out how to do it. Why are they going to stop?
This was just like a moment where it's like, oh yeah, you guys can do this. You can do this. And but the fact that you could do this now, there's no reason why you can't do this again.
As if somehow on the internet there's any shortage of places to create communities. When you have 3.5 million people, let's propose 1% of them are programmers. Like, how hard is it going to be where all they're interested in doing is being able to text each other? They're not trying to build spaceships. They just need a space to exchange information, where there's a worldwide infrastructure designed to facilitate this, as you said earlier. It's glorious.
And this is part of the reason why everyone's freaking out. It's not just about this $70 billion that was lost. It's the fact that, well, now, I mean, what's to stop you from doing this again?